All right, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Our topic today is pricing strategies. It's Airbnb's biggest mystery. And the things we're going to answer today are: what should your base price be? How do you know what to charge for special events? How do you even find special events? How can you price your unit so that you can make 40% more money with every booking? Those questions and many more will be answered today. So if you have any questions, you can paste them on the event page for the Google Plus event page and drop your questions in there on the comments, and we'll get to those at the end of this webinar. So without further delay, I'd like to invite Joe to teach us how to be Airbnb pricing pros. So Joe, if you could walk us through your presentation and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. So as Jim mentioned, I'm one of the founders of Price Method. We are a software company focused on helping peer-to-peer hosts run their business better, earn more money, work less, etc. And I'll tell you about how we do that and how you can take some of these tips home using them yourself. We think about a peer-to-peer rental as anyone who is renting a home to other people directly, right? So whether that be through sites like Airbnb or VRBO, whether it be through property managers, etc. It's just kind of anytime someone travels and stays somewhere that's not a hotel. So our focus and how we help people make more money is with dynamic pricing. So we have basically teams of engineers and PhD data scientists that spend all their time, collecting as much data as possible about the market, and then designing and building algorithms to kind of process that data and make intelligent price recommendations. And I'm going to show you some of the secrets we use to do that today. So first, I want to define dynamic pricing. And all it is basically adjusting prices based on demand. Hotels and airlines have been doing this for decades. I actually have a quote here at the bottom of the slide from a former CEO of American Airlines saying dynamic pricing is the single most important technical development since deregulation. So all that is to say, it's a big deal. It is a core part of how airlines and hotels run their business. And in our view, it should be a core part of how anyone renting their home should also run their business. So just to give you an example of how big of a deal this can be, on this next slide, I'm showing the average hotel price in San Francisco for every night for the next year. That's the red line. And then in blue, the average peer-to-peer rental price. So as you can see, absolutely huge difference between these lines. The hotels are using, sophisticated software and, frankly, teams of revenue managers to constantly adjust their pricing to capture demand and capture additional revenue. And as you can see, the peer-to-peer hosts are just not doing that. You can see there's, weekends are priced in on the blue line. There's a few wiggles for maybe different events, but it's nowhere near the level of kind of sophistication and completeness that the hotels are doing. And as a result, hosts are leaving revenue on the table. In this chart, the difference between these two lines over the course of the year is an additional 46% additional revenue. So it's absolutely a huge number. And this is a big part of the reason that we are doing what we're doing, is because we see a big opportunity to help people. If you think about all the different places in your business, you try to make additional revenue, cutting costs, being careful about various ways you might do marketing, etc. All of that is probably a much smaller deal than this opportunity here. It's rare to see a way to add 46%. So just kind of one note here on the peer-to-peer market is part of the reason that this blue line is so flat is most hosts, actually about 60%, just have one price for the whole year. So weekends, holidays, just one price for the whole year. 80% of the market has 3 or fewer prices for the year, so maybe like a summer-winter rate. And the rest is something more than that. So just the fact that you guys have showed up today for this webinar means you're well on your way to becoming a top host. Just a word on how the hotels do it, right? I mentioned they use software. They have teams of revenue managers. They also have, frankly, years, in some cases, decades of booking history to go off of. And all the hotel rooms are basically the same. So they, in many ways, have a much easier way of doing this than we do in the peer-to-peer market, because as you guys know, every region is unique, every neighborhood is unique, and every listing is unique. So trying to price every individual peer-to-peer listing is much more difficult than doing it for hotels. Fortunately, we can help you. We do this all day. We work with customers that have anywhere from a few listings to hundreds, or in some cases, thousands of listings. And through that process, we've developed these 5 steps. Oops, I'm sorry, that's the wrong slide. 5 steps to perfect pricing that I'm going to go through with you today. So we're going to dive into each one of these in detail. Some of these you may look at and say, okay, weekends, that's not news, Joe. I know there's weekends. For each one of these points, I would say there's like the first step, how you want to do it, and there's like the kind of more advanced way to think about it. And I'm sure many of you are doing some of these things already in some fashion, but I'm going to talk to you today about more, some of the both simple and advanced ways to think about it, and then how to kind of apply all these together into one coherent strategy. So first, let me talk to you about finding your ideal base price. This is really the starting point for any pricing strategy. The base price is just the price you would charge on a regular weekday with nothing special going on. And it's important to get this right because everything else builds on it. So essentially what you want to do here is analyze your competition. That could be other nearby listings on either Airbnb or other sites. It could be nearby hotels. That's all going to depend on what kind of listing you have and where it's located and what your guests are going to evaluate before or after, before they choose where they're going to stay. So if you're looking at other homes, I have here kind of the 4 key factors that drive pricing. Beds, baths, location is obviously number 1. Photos, I'm sure you guys have all heard that photos are kind of one of the key factors in helping people determine where to stay. This is both the number and the quality. Even if you have great photos, more great photos always helps. When you think about photo quality, also, it's both resolution as well as kind of the more artistic elements. So good lighting, are the rooms accessorized? Are they clean, etc.? Professional photos can be a really good ROI if you're renting your home full time. Next one is policies. This is everything from minimum stay to various fees, your cancellation policy. These matter a great deal. So when you're looking at other competitors in your area, it's important to look at how their policies stack up against yours and think about how that might impact your pricing. And then finally, reviews. This one's pretty intuitive, but what we have found is that all reviews are not equal, right? The first 5 or 10 reviews matter quite a bit. Once you get further in, if you have 50 reviews and your neighbor has 60 reviews, it actually doesn't matter that much. So reviews are important, but especially important, when you're first establishing yourself and kind of building the credibility of your listing. So you definitely want to evaluate any other listings across all 4 factors, and then depending on what kind of listing you have, looking at hotels is important as well. So this becomes more important if you have a smaller listing, especially a studio or a 1-bedroom, and especially if it's an urban area, right? The ultimate example is a studio or a 1-bedroom in a downtown area of a city. That's going to price very, very similar to a hotel. Now, the key point when you're evaluating competition here is that it's not just about what price they're charging. It's about, are they actually getting that price? And on Airbnb, you can evaluate this pretty easily. You can look through listings and see kind of how far ahead they're booking, how many nights booked they have that far ahead. And the important thing here is it's actually not better to be booking that far ahead. If you see people who are booked like 2, 3, 4 months, most of their nights ahead, that means they're underpriced. That means they're leaving money on the table. In most markets, you want to be booked, kind of most of your nights between 30 and 60 days ahead. And that's going to depend on the size of your listing, but that's kind of a rough way to think about it. If you're booking far ahead of that, or if a neighbor is booking far ahead of that, it means they're the best value in the area and they should be raising their price. If they're booking slower than that, it means they're overpriced and they should lower. So that's just the important kind of thing to have in mind when you're looking at pricing. So once you've done all that and gotten a sense of how your listing compares in the market and what your kind of standard base price should be, it's time to think about weekends and seasonal demand. Now, I'm guessing many of you already probably price a weekend rate, and that's great. It's going to depend on the type of listing you have and where it's located. So most places, weekends you price higher, but again, if you are appealing more to business travelers, to be more in a city, it could even be the reverse. For urban hotels, Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday are the busiest nights because of business travel. And so it's not an automatic that the weekend rate should be higher. And then, of course, even if it is higher, it's a question of how much. So for both of those, I would go through a similar exercise as with the base price. Look at other kind of competition nearby to try to understand how weekends are priced in your area. And then you have to think about seasonality. So every market has seasons, but they're different. So this chart here shows our measure of seasonality for San Diego, Phoenix, and New York. I just picked these three because they all kind of have different seasonal characteristics. So you can see New York in the blue has a little bit of seasonality, but actually not much. The fall and the spring are the high seasons there. The winter is the low season. But the change isn't that large. Whereas if you look at like Phoenix, which is the red line, you can see it's a huge change, right? There you've got summer is low season, kind of late winter, early spring is where it peaks. And the difference between those two is like 2. Then you have San Diego, totally different pattern, summer high season, kind of winter low season. And so this is going to happen in every market. And so it's important to look around and understand how your market prices. It's often a little bit more nuanced than just, spring and fall high, winter low, or the reverse, as you can see here. And then kind of the pro tip is, even within a market, seasonality applies differently to different listings. So if you're in San Diego, it's going to make a big difference if you're on the beach or near the beach versus if you're, several miles away or downtown, right? So obviously the beach listing is going to have a much higher summer season even than other listings in town. Similarly, if you have like a roof deck or a yard or some kind of outdoor area that's going to be extra attractive during the high season, that's going to have an impact as well. So those are all things to kind of think about as you think about seasonality. Fortunately, seasonality is something you can set far in advance and only review periodically. That's our step 2. Step 3 is major events. This is my favorite one just because it can have such a huge impact on pricing. This is one of the big drivers of revenue for hotels. And I'm showing here, this is just a chart of how local events are impacting one specific listing in San Francisco. And here I'm only showing the impact of local events. I'm not showing seasonality or kind of other factors we might look at. So as you can see, a lot of events that drive pricing. Dreamforce here in the middle is kind of this big tech conference in the fall, happens every year. A lot of folks in San Francisco know about this one. As you can see, just for this unit, it's letting us double our price. But there's a lot of other events that people do not know about, right? So if you look at the RSA conference in April, that has almost as big an impact as Dreamforce, and yet it's nowhere near as well known, and most folks are not pricing that at all. Similarly, later on, you can see the Super Bowl is coming to the Bay Area in February. And obviously, this is going to have an impact on prices, but it depends where your listing is. This listing is in kind of a business district of San Francisco. It's nowhere near close to the stadium or other events, and so it actually doesn't have a huge impact. Whereas you can see the previous month in January, the Asia Pacific Bioinformatics Conference, which is right near the listing, has a bigger impact than the Super Bowl. And so this is kind of counterintuitive, and one of these things that you can only really get to with a decent amount of research and data. But the larger point I'm trying to make here is that no matter where you are, there can be major events that will impact demand and pricing in your area. And the more you can do to understand those events, the more you're going to kind of give yourself opportunities to increase revenue, to market rates during these times. And it's not just business conferences. As you can see here, we have like Gay Pride is a big event in SF that happens this summer. Beta Breakers is like a civic event. So the next question obviously is, how do you find these events? And they can be all kinds. So For business events, it's often helpful to look for local conference centers and check their calendars. You can check calendars for local colleges, sports stadiums, musical events, music venues, etc. Any major event venue should have calendars online. You can check in advance and kind of periodically to see what events are happening, and then kind of check local hotels and other kind of competing hosts to see what the pricing impact is going to be. It's work, but it's absolutely worth it. As you can see here again from this chart, huge opportunity to raise revenue during events. Step 4. So I've got a big word here, temporality. All this means is adjusting your price based on when the vacancy is. A vacancy tomorrow is worth a lot less than a vacancy in a month. A vacancy in a month is worth less than a vacancy in 5 months, etc. And it depends also on the size of the listing you have. So I'm guessing many of you are already experimenting with last-minute discounting to fill vacancies before they go empty, right? So that's relatively common. What I want to kind of challenge everyone today to think about is, number one, doing that in a structured way. So you're not discounting a night tomorrow the same as a night 2 weeks from now, right? They should be different amounts, and you should adjust that kind of as the vacancy becomes closer and become more aggressive to fill it. And then on the other side of the scale, for nights that are far out in the future, you can actually raise rates. And this is something that hotels do and have been doing kind of forever. If someone needs that specific range of days 4 or 5 months from now before anyone else is booking, they're most likely willing to pay a premium to get those nights. We see this kind of consistently, that people who are planning ahead are doing so because they're prizing the convenience of having those specific nights, and you should be able to get a little extra for that. Now, it is going to depend on what size rental you have. So as an example here, for a 1-bedroom, that's going to book, again, more like a hotel. It's going to book sooner to the stay date, so you're going to have fewer advanced bookings. And that means that you can do your discounting a little bit later, and you can be a little bit more aggressive about pricing the far future. For a larger rental, and I'm showing here a 5-bedroom, those tend to be for larger events, group events that are planned farther in advance. And so the default behavior is people are going to plan farther ahead, and that means you can still raise rates for the far future. You wouldn't be quite as aggressive about it as you would with a 1-bedroom. And on the other hand, you'd be a little bit more aggressive about discounting, because if you've got a 5-bedroom rental and it's still open 2 weeks from the stay date, it's going to be more difficult to fill that listing than a 1-bedroom. So you have to discount it a little bit more aggressively. And all of this is going to depend on your local market. When we think about temporality and discounting, we actually build a custom discounting model or temporality model for each listing. So I don't mean to indicate that it's as simple as this table is laying out. I'm just giving an example. Step 5, update your prices as frequently as possible, ideally every single day. And I know that can be daunting because it's a lot of work, but the market moves every day, right? Every day more data becomes available, the time to vacancy changes, and it's just another opportunity to kind of fine-tune your pricing. So across the various tips we've discussed thus far, I have kind of a few bullet points of how you can do this or what you should look for. So for your base price, you'd want to think about how other listings near you are booking, how your inquiry to bookings ratio is, and what it looks like relative to the past. If there's new information, reviews, or improvements that you can use to update your pricing, etc. Weekends and seasonality, I know I mentioned earlier you can kind of set this a few times a year, but you still have to keep an eye on it because seasons actually are not static. Just an example from this year, Tahoe, which is close to where close to San Francisco, is a big ski area, and so the snow season is a major period of high demand for them. But this year they had record low snow, and so no one went skiing. And so anyone who was in Tahoe renting out ski rentals, if they had kept their standard seasonal pricing all year, they would have had a really rough season, right? So because of the low snow, people had to get more aggressive, offer lower pricing to capture a smaller number of customers. And that's something they had to kind of look at periodically. Even a single snowstorm is an opportunity to kind of reevaluate that and adjust pricing. Similar thing happened this year on the opposite side of the country. Boston and Vermont and the whole Northeast had record high snows. So if you're in Vermont, you want to raise prices. Whereas if you're in Boston, the city, you want to lower prices because fewer travelers came because of the weather. So seasonality is not static. It has to be kind of looked at periodically. Major events, same thing. Major events are kind of announced or updated constantly, or even rescheduled. You obviously want to know about that as soon as possible. And then even if the date is kept the same, you want to kind of be watching the market, saying how much availability is left in my market. How should I be pricing relative to what I thought? Are my competitors booking up? Do I need to raise? Do I need to lower, etc. And then finally, this is probably the most important one to update daily is temporality, right? Because this is like literally, if you're 15 days out versus 14 days out, there's a different price for that. If you're doing this, you want to focus most on the next 30 nights, and you definitely want to keep in mind how are your competitors discounting, and perhaps discount a bit more than them to remain kind of attractive in the market. So big picture here is the market prices are going to change every day, and if you can change your prices every day, it's going to give you a huge opportunity to take advantage of every available pricing opportunity. So those are the 5 steps. I'm actually giving you a bonus tip today, which is where you list your home matters. I know this is a seminar with Learn Airbnb. Airbnb is a fantastic platform. It's not the only platform. I have here, some of the major platforms out there. There are even others beyond this. And the key point here is every platform is different, right? There are different demographics. And so depending on where you're located and the type of listing you have, different platforms will do better or worse for you. So Airbnb, we're all familiar with. It's strongest in urban areas with younger travelers. You get a lot more bookings kind of in the last 30 days than other platforms. HomeAway, in contrast, much more popular in vacation areas, beach areas especially. Typically get longer bookings. Typically bookings come farther in advance. Booking.com, some of you may be familiar with this, is very popular with the European market. So especially around European vacation days, Booking.com can be a huge channel. You can actually increase pricing for European vacation times. Also very strong with business travelers. I'm not going to dig into every single channel here, but the big picture is there's a lot of them. The more of them that you're on, the better, because it gives you more opportunity to meet new guests. And you can have a different pricing strategy for each one depending on the type of listing you have. So those are the tips I wanted to go over with you today. Just to review, look at your competitive market, your competitive area to find your ideal base price. Think about how weekends and seasons impact your market and your specific listing. Look around at major event venues near you to figure out which events might be able to increase demand in your area and raise prices accordingly. Use temporality to think about how much to discount for last minute openings and how much to raise prices for the far future. Step 5, probably the most important one, update your prices as frequently as possible, ideally every single day. And then bonus tip, where you list your home matters. So think quite a bit about that. I know this is a lot. I know there's a lot here. There's a lot to do, and we all have kind of busy lives. And frankly, most hosts are not able to do all of this, certainly every day by themselves. And that's why we started Price Method. We're here to help. Our platform does kind of all of this and more for you automatically. So we offer an automated daily analysis of the entire market. We will show you for every listing you have recommended prices for free. We'll show you events near you. Through us, you can auto price either your whole calendar or even just a few days or a week. We'll help you price across multiple sites. Currently Airbnb, HomeAway, and VRBO, but we're adding more. And all this in combination, we're able to help earn our customers an extra 20 to 40% more automatically with no additional work on their part. It's free to sign up. We have a 2-month free trial and a lot more exciting features in the works that I can't share yet, but are definitely coming very soon. So I'll leave you with that. Happy to take any questions and be helpful however I can.
Great, Joe. Thank you very much for that awesome presentation. There's a lot of great info. And the last tip about using all the different listing platforms is very, very important. There's channels out there, so hosts, if you're listening, make sure you're seizing all the opportunities. As Joe said, there's different demographics on each site, so make sure you're getting as much as you can out of the time that you're spending. Interesting. It's a lot of work to do all this stuff, and doing it all yourself takes a lot of time. So let's dive right into price method. It sounds like it can really reduce the burden onto the host. So if you have a 2-month free trial, that's great. So that's how you get started. And then for price method, do I need to give you entire access to my calendar, or can you do just certain days, or how does that work?
So we offer, excellent question. We offer a lot of flexibility for our users. So you can either sign up and not automate any pricing and just look at our recommended prices. You could have us automatically price a day, a few days, an event for you, a week, or you could turn on your whole calendar. So really anywhere you want to be along that spectrum, from just using our information as a guide to having us update a few days to having us update your whole calendar. We can kind of be anywhere on that spectrum.
Great, great. That sounds like a very flexible option. You can kind of test it out before you really give the reins over to a third party. Do the prices that they auto-publish, or how do you just email them to us and we copy and paste them in, or how does that work?
Excellent question. Yeah, our goal is to make your life easier. So an email and having you do it would not be as easy as it could be. So we actually are able to update, once you link your account, we're able to update your Airbnb or VRBO or HomeAway prices for you automatically once you tell us to.
Awesome, awesome. And then how far out can price method do the suggestion? Is it something that can look out 12 months, or is it something that's only available within the first 3 months, or how far out can you guys work?
Yep. So currently we're going out 12 months. So every day we reanalyze the whole market for that day plus 12 months and update pricing for the days we've been instructed to.
Great. So the biggest thing that we see is that events have a huge impact. But what if I have an event, like say we're in the downtown LA area, there's a basketball game for the Lakers, but say I live 10 miles from that event. How can price method really help me, even if I'm really significantly further away than most users to that event? And what suggestions do you have for that?
Yes, that's actually an awesome question. So demand is not static, right? And it's not universal. Demand is different for every listing in every neighborhood and every region. And we've done a lot of work to kind of build out the technology that can understand that. So we don't look at, like, as an example, a Lakers game and apply demand for that universally to the whole city. We look at, number one, for any kind of event, what type of demand is that creating, right? Is it business travelers? Is it vacation? Is it families traveling for college graduation? We understand the type of demand, and we understand the epicenter of demand. Where is it coming from? Where do people want to be physically? And then we look at, for each listing, how does that map to your listing? Are you far away or are you close? Are you a listing that kind of needs that type of demand well or not? So these are all things we look at, and so we kind of end up building a customized demand profile for every single listing.
Oh wow, that's pretty detailed. That's good that you have dedicated to the epicenter, and then how does that trickle out into the different areas within that same market?
I think that's what you have to do, Jim. Even if you're doing it on your own, you really have to kind of think about these things as much as possible, because as much as it's super attractive to use events as a way to generate higher rates, you also don't want to get too aggressive and price yourself out of the market. And so you really got to be thoughtful about how a specific type of demand will impact your listing.
True, very true. All right, so you talked about there's market pricing, and is there a way to be at a certain level relative to the market? So say you're not one of the best the best amenities or this or that, but say you want to be like middle of the road type of place, and you want to be at the 50th percentile. Is that possible? Like, is there a global adjustment? And does price method take into account my risk tolerance? So say I want to always focus on maximizing my my days rented out. Like I want to have 28 or 29 out of 30 days. How does price method work with risk tolerance, and does it allow like a global adjustment to being in a certain band of pricing?
Uh, Excellent question. So for anyone we work with, our goal is to maximize their revenue overall, right? So that's number of nights they book times number of times how much they charge per night. Um, and so we do custom analysis of each listing. We look at how far in advance you're booking. We look at your booking history, and so we try to dial in to make sure we're making the most possible money. But we also recognize that everyone has their own risk tolerance. As you said, we allow people to adjust it to their preferences. So as an example, if we set someone's base price at 175, if they feel like, they're not sure if they're really going to get that, they're not, comfortable kind of being that aggressive, they can lower it. We give them the opportunity within our site to adjust their base price. Maybe they say they drop it to 150. They'll book further ahead. They might recognize they're leaving a little bit of money on the table, but they're just more comfortable starting at that pricing. They can absolutely adjust that, and we also allow them to adjust their min and max price if they want to establish thresholds there.
Great. It's a very powerful, I think, a very powerful tool an option to give the hosts. How about this? So minimum stays. What are your thoughts on minimum stays? And can Price Method recommend minimum stays that are relative to my market, or what do you think about minimum stays? Should we have them? Should we trash them? What are your thoughts?
So we actually recommend that our customers not have minimum stays, and the reason is all it does is it prevents you from seeing potential bookings. You may decide you're not going to take a booking, but we believe that you're better off seeing every potential inquiry and evaluating if you want to take it or not. And especially around events, they can often be only a day, 2 days, 3 days. If you have like a week-long minimum stay, you're just not going to see inquiries for those events, and you're going to miss out on that opportunity. So we recommend people just don't have them. They get to see every single booking, and then they evaluate if they want to take a 1 night or a 2 night or a 3 night booking every single time. And that's actually another feature that we don't have live yet, but we're going to have live is the ability to kind of assign a score to each inquiry to tell you if you should take it or not. So sometimes a 3-day booking is awesome, and you should definitely take it. Other times it might be right in the middle of a 10-day period of high demand in your area, and we tell you don't take the 3-day booking because you're going to get something better. So we're working on that, but either way, I would say avoid minimum stays because all they do is limit the number of inquiries you're going to get.
That makes sense. It's a very good point that I don't think many people consider. But yeah, that's very, very smart to think about it that way. All right, so how about this one? This is a very important thing to everybody. Search results. Does Airbnb give your listing preference in the search results if you change your pricing daily? And if I'm working with, does this only work if I do it manually, or does Price Method help with this? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, awesome question. Search results are super important. They've done industry studies, and the average traveler evaluates about 30 options before choosing where to stay. So if you are the 200th listing in your neighborhood, you're probably not going to get a lot of bookings because no one's going to get that far down the list. So search results are very important. Airbnb and HomeAway, all the sites, look at a number of factors in how to prioritize search. So response time is one of them, whether you have instant book is another. But one of the biggest ones is how often you update your calendar and your pricing. And it doesn't matter if we do it or if it's manual, but more is better. So that's one thing a lot of our beta users have really enjoyed is by signing up with us, we update their pricing every day. They instantly become the most active host in their area and go way up in search results. So it's a huge benefit.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible benefit. I mean, all right, well, we know what the status is on that. So make sure you're updating your prices every day, whether with Price Method or manually. And I guess the last thing is, can Price Method create like emergency levels? Like, can we set a min or a max that, well, obviously not a max. We'd love to get as much as we can, but is there like a minimum? I know there's a base price, but is there like a minimum, like if you say our base price is 150, but I'll take $50 no matter what, just in case, it's like an hour, 2, 3, actually about this 24 hours before my booking date, and I say, all right, I'll take minimum $50. Is that something that Price Method builds in, or do you suggest even having minimums? What are your thoughts?
So part of our temporality model is to do last minute discounting that gets more and more aggressive the closer it gets. So like if you're 10 days out versus 5 days out versus 1 day out, we'll discount you different amounts. And yeah, with the goal of making sure that you get a booking if at all possible, because vacancies suck. So that's kind of built into the model. We already kind of do last minute discounting. It's extremely aggressive. We allow people the opportunity to set a minimum if they don't want us to go below a certain amount. So typically people use it the other way around, where they say, I'm not willing to have someone here for less than $100 a night or whatever it is. And we allow people to set that. If they don't set it, then we'll just we'll discount it to to a level that we think is as aggressive as it needs to be to get a last minute booking.
Great. All right, so let's take a few minutes and see if any more questions come in from the viewers. You guys can drop questions in on the Google Plus event page, and we'll wait here for a few minutes and see if anything comes in. If you don't get them over during the live webinar, make sure to post them, and we'll get to the answers. So we'll wait a few minutes, and we'll drop some more questions into you if we have them. All right, Joe?
Sounds good. I actually, I'll address one more question that you haven't asked, but I'm sure many people may have, which is how much do we charge for Price Method?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we're trying to keep it very affordable, very attractive. So it's just a monthly flat fee depending on the size of your listing, and it's $10 per bedroom per month. So if you have a 2-bedroom place, it's $20 a month. We have a guarantee that you won't pay the fee if we don't at least make you that much money. But in practice, we're making people, like significantly more than the fee we charge, and that's obviously the goal.
Hey, that sounds like it's paying for itself, like a no-brainer. Everybody should be signing up for Price Method today.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. That's good. All right. Well, we're not seeing any more questions coming in, but for the viewers, if there are any questions that you have, please drop them into the event page. And just let us know. You can always be in contact with us. You can get in contact with Learn Airbnb at info@learnairbnb.com. You can get in contact with Joe at his whole team at hello@pricemethod.com, or specifically if you want to talk to Joe, is joe@pricemethod.com. Joe, thank you very, very much for giving us all these awesome tips and introducing Price Method to everybody. Again, any questions, you can send them on over. And everybody, thank you for joining, and have a great day.
Thank you, Jim.